user friendly. So if you want to ask inputs from the user when you're executing the playbook, that's where we can make use of your prompts. Then we've looked at your tags. So by default, your playbooks, it executes all the tasks. Now, if you want to selectively execute your tasks, we can make use of your tags for that. So tags helps us to individually select your tasks, and then you can choose which task you want to execute. So that's where we can make use of your tags for that. Uh, then we've looked at your start and step as well. So start can be used when you want to start the playbook from a particular step, right? Like let's say task 2, task 3, task 4. You can make use of your start for that. And then step can be used when you want to have the control on the individual tasks as to you want to execute it or not. That's where we can make use of your step. We also looked at your error handling, passing your variables through command line, and then we looked at your delegate to, and that is where we had stopped. Okay. So moving on to the next is your including and importing. Now, until now we have looked at executing one single playbook, right? Like we have everything in one single playbook. But as the size of your playbook increases, it becomes very difficult to manage those playbooks, and also troubleshooting the playbook becomes very complex. Now, what we can do for that is we can break down your playbook. So instead of like having one playbook, we can have 10 playbooks. But then how do we execute all these playbooks one after the other? So that's where we have your including and importing. So Ansible has two modes if you want to make your playbooks reusable. Again, reusability is something that is very important, right? Any code that we are writing, we have to see if we can make the code reusable. So Ansible has two options for that. One is using the including and importing, and the other option we have is your roles. So roles, we'll talk about that. For now, we'll talk about your including and importing. So import can be used when you want the playbooks to be pre-processed. So basically, everything should be processed first, and then the execution should start. Include can be used when you want to process the playbook as and when they're encountered. For example, import can be used when you want to make sure that all the playbooks are available. For example, let's say a playbook 1, playbook 2, playbook 3, playbook 4, and then playbook 5. Now, before you start the execution, you want to make sure that all these 5 playbooks are existing, meaning those files are available. For that, we can make use of your import. Include can be used when you don't have that such use case. So as and when the playbook triggers, like let's say I start the playbook 1, it triggers playbook 2. That's when your include will check whether the playbook is available or not. Then playbook 3, it will check. Then playbook 4, it will check. So when it encounters the execution of the playbook, that is when the processing will start. Okay, that's the main difference you have. So but both can be used when you want to break down your playbook in different files to organize your complex playbook, or if you want to make it reusable. Okay, that is where you have it. So here, for example, this is an example I have. So you can say I've written one main playbook, and then I've distributed. So my tasks, if you see, I have one task in a file, then another task in another file, and then so on. And this is how, if you want to include just the tasks, okay, this is the command we use. So let me show you an example for that. So let's connect to the control machine here. And I'll just have to quickly update my inventory file because I have started this service. Okay, so I'm able to connect. So as for the example of this, again, you should be able to find the example in the GitHub repo that I have shared. Let's see. Okay, so there's my Ansible. And okay, so first we'll look at your include example. So I'll have one main playbook. Okay, so this will be my main playbook. So let's call this, I'll create one folder for this. So let's call this as include. I'll go to that folder and let's create. So first we'll call this as main.yaml, and then maybe we'll have 1.yaml, 2.yaml, and then 3.yaml. Just for the sake of example. Now in the main.yaml, this is what I am going to have. So my host will be set to all. So all these are regular things, right? And then comes the tasks. So the first task is, in this case, I'm looking to install Git. Post that, if you see here, I'm going to trigger another task. Okay, so include underscore task, that's the keyword, and then you specify which task do you want to execute. Likewise, once that is completed, we will trigger this task, and then we will trigger this task. Now, in this case, with your include, what happens is all of your tasks will get executed on the remote machine that you have defined here. Okay, so like if you had specified local host, it will execute on the local host. If it's one remote machine, it will execute on that remote machine. In this case, I've given all, that means it will get executed on all the remote machines. Now we will fill in the other three files. In this case, we're not going to define the target section for everything. The target section will be there in only one file, which is your main file. Okay, and then the rest of the files will have only your tasks. What tasks do you want to execute? Okay, so let me quickly do this, and then I can talk a bit more on this. Okay, so I should have my playbook here. So this is what we have, right? So main is where we have defined our target section. I've defined my first task, and then I have three more files. So if you look at all, this is what we have. So task 1.yaml, this is what I will have. Task 2.yaml, this is what I have, and then 3.yaml, this is what I have. So what's the advantage of this? I can use this task in any of the playbooks I want, right? It is not restricted to this playbook only. So I've made it reusable now. And also the complexity has reduced now, right? So now if I execute this, so all I have to do is I have to trigger the, sorry, let me make this a little smaller. I just have to trigger the main file. That's all. That will take care of triggering the task. So you can see here, this is the first task, all right, and then it has included my second task. Then here is my third task, and this is the fourth task. Sorry, the third task which has failed. But you get the idea, right? Questions?
Yes, Ravi. No, Ravi.
So this is your include, and then we have your import. Okay. Now, what your import? Again, import is also breaking down your playbooks, but the difference you will see is that we can have these playbooks for different machines altogether. So here I'll have my playbook, and then you can see I'm doing an import, right? So let me take this. So again, let's say we will define the main.yaml, and let's set this to all. Just give me 1 minute. I'm fed up of this. I'll go ahead with Amazon Linux AMI. I cannot keep on modifying the scripts. It's taking a lot of time. So I'll just go and quickly launch one machine. In the meantime, I can explain the script to you guys. Okay, so let that spin up. So I have two tasks defined here, and then I'm importing the playbook. Now, very important thing that you have to observe here is your indentation. When we're talking about your import, you can see it is aligning with your target section. Okay, so where it is starting. But when we talk about your import include, it aligns at your task level. So here can say it aligns at the task level. So that indentation is also very important. Okay, so your import, it aligns at the target level. Your include, it aligns at the task level. Okay, so please keep that in mind. So we are set it to all. I want to install Git, I want to install Docker, and then I want to trigger my play2.yaml, play3.yaml, and then play4.yaml. Okay, now, so let me quickly create this play2.yaml, play3.yaml, and then play4.yaml. Now, the other difference that you will find with your import statement is that you can define the target section for each of the playbooks. Okay, unlike your include, where all the tasks are executed on the same target, with your import, I can have the playbooks execute on different machines. For example, let's say you wanted to create sort of a pipeline. So you want play 1 to execute on, let's say, app server, play 2 to execute on SQL server, play 3 to execute on web server, play 4 to execute on some other server. I can do that, but with your include, that is not possible. Okay, that's another difference we have. So I can have the target section for each of the playbooks that we are going to trigger here, right? But again, this is also same as breaking down your playbooks, but there are some differences that you will have to understand. So again, all I have to do here is trigger the main playbook, and that will take care of triggering the other playbooks for me. So, okay, sorry, I have to, yeah, I forgot about that. So let me quickly connect to this. Okay. Running from first playbook. Okay, I have to install Python 2 on the machine. Okay, give me one more minute. I may have to do some additional things. Okay. Okay. Okay, that is again Python 3.9. Yeah, that's 3.9. Okay, so it's telling me to use DNF instead of yum. So let's go ahead and change that. So I have to use DNF. I have to change all behavior. Okay, let's do it. DNF, okay, service, and okay, so now let's try this once again. Okay, so you can say running from first playbook, running again from first playbook. Once this is completed, it will trigger my second playbook. And again, whatever the target I've defined in that, it will execute accordingly. Okay, so anyways, this has failed, but okay, I'll have to fix that. Hold on. This is play 2. So you're complaining me about first task, I guess. Yeah, maybe you're complaining about this. So let's set this to Git. Okay, so could not find the requested service Docker. Why? Okay. So I've installed Docker here. Yeah, so Docker is installed. Inactive. Okay, maybe it took some time, I guess. This is because of my local machine. Okay, that's fine. But you can see here, I started from the first playbook and it automatically triggered the second playbook, then the third playbook, and then the fourth playbook, and then so on. So that's what your import can be used for. So basically here we use this whenever you want to make your playbooks reusable. And if you want to reduce the complexity of your playbooks, we can make use of it, including and importing for that. Questions?
No, Ravi.
No, sir.
Next, now Ansible also supports working with the Docker containers. So meaning, you want to create containers, you want to build image, all those things are possible with your Ansible. Okay, so Ansible container, it provides an Ansible centric workflow for building, running, testing and running your containers. So Ansible containers enable you to build container images and then orchestrate them using only Ansible playbook. So we can write a playbook and then we can give the instructions like, hey, I want to build a playbook, Docker image, or I want to run a container. So with Ansible container, you no longer have to build and configure containers differently than you do traditional virtual machines or bare metal systems. Ansible container can be used to run the applications and also push images to the central registries. And everything Ansible brings to orchestrating your infrastructure can now be applied to the image build process as well. So before we start working with your playbooks for containers, you'll need to install the module for that. Okay, so we can use the pip for that. So we'll have to make sure that pip is basically a Python package manager. So we have to make sure if pip is available or not. So you can say I don't have it. So I'm going to install it. Okay, so apt install python 3-pip. So again, like I said, pip is simply your Python's package manager. So any Python packages you want to install, we can make use of your pip for that. So we have to make sure we have pip first. And once we have the pip, we can install the Ansible container thing. So I should have the pip. Okay. And then we are going to install the Ansible container. So we'll say pip install Ansible container, and you can also, it also has supports for your Kubernetes, but let's see. Okay, you're complaining about. Okay, let me see if I can find some information. Okay, let's see. Okay, so that's how I'll have to install it. I guess they have changed the process. So let's try this one. Okay, looks like that's how we'll have to do. It also has support for your Docker Compose. So let me ping this link in case your guys are interested. You should be able to use this for setting up your Docker containers for Ansible. Okay, so once we have that, we can start writing our playbooks. Okay, so like in this case, if you see here, I'm starting a container. Here also I'm starting a container. Here I am stopping a container and deleting a container. Here I'm building an image and I'm pushing it to Docker Hub. So again, I have examples available in the Docker Hub GitHub repo that I've shared. You should have some examples, and that's what we're going to look at. So let's say we want to start a container. So it's a very simple playbook that we have over here. So we want to start a container. So this is what the module that we use. Name of the container, which image you want to use, and then where do you want to store the data. Okay, so it's a simple playbook that we have written. So let's take this and let's start creating this and see how it works. Let me exit from here. I'll create one more folder for Docker. Let's go to that and let's go with this Jenkins.yaml. Okay, now let me save this. Now before I run this, I want to show you. Okay, it's not there. Let me log into that machine once again. So this is the worker machine that I'm going to. So you can say I don't have any containers running. So now let's trigger this playbook. Docker SDK failed to import the required. This is the remote machine. I Python. Okay, it is complaining about the module, I guess. But I didn't wanted that. Python library. Okay, so I need to. It looks like I need the Python library. So host. Yeah, it's been some time since I experimented with this. Something might have changed. I'm not sure. Let's see.
Rabbi, even in organization and all, like, do we use Ansible to, like, to launch Docker and all, Docker containers, or it is just a specification and Ansible?
No, actually, the answer would be no. We don't use it.
Okay.
But um, um, yeah, at an organization level, we definitely don't use this. We use it only for managing your remote machines.
Okay.
Or rather, I should say, in my experience, I have not seen anyone using it. There might be a case people might use it, but this can be cumbersome at times.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that is where we don't generally use this to work with your containers. We use Kubernetes. So Kubernetes as of now is very famous when we talk about your containers.
Okay.
Uh, Again, see Ansible, the usage of Ansible is mainly working with the remote machines, like configuration management.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to install Docker, maybe let's say, or maybe install Java or install Python or copy some files to all the servers. That is where we make use of your configuration management. You can also
Uh,
make use of Ansible to set up infrastructure, like on AWS. If you want to set up infrastructure like CloudFormation, for example,
okay.
and has support for that, but we don't use it because that's not the purpose of your Ansible.
Yeah.
So
We
though
use Terraform. Instead of that, we use
correct,
Terraform, right?
correct. So though it supports what you need, but feature wise it is not I would say that great compared to other tools. It is
Okay.
still lacking on certain things that are needed, and
Mm-hmm.
that is don't use it.
Okay.
So this is more of just for your information that it has this support, so that if someone asks you, hey, can we do it using Ansible, you can, but again there will be um, uh, you know there will be few things that you'll have to keep in mind. It's not
Mm-hmm.
really that simple to do it, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Makes sense.
It is already installed. So now let's try this. Wasting time. I guess give me 1 minute. I'll just be back in a moment. Sorry.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm back. Yeah, so I'm not sure. I'll have to says no my module. So install. Try this. It says already installed. So what are you complaining about? So on this machine, which is why do you need this machine? We'll try this last time. If not, then move on to the next topic, and then I can troubleshoot this at a later point. Sorry. Okay, so are you complaining about? No, that's not the one. So what are you complaining about? So this is docker-py. Okay, so now let's give it a try once again. Error. Okay, fine. So we moved on to the next step. So now it is complaining about, it is telling the image, whatever the image you're looking for, that's not there. So we'll go to Docker Hub and let's quickly check that. So hub.docker.com. We are looking for the Jenkins image. So it is complaining that, hey, the Jenkins tag latest is not there. So let's try looking for that. So the official one would be, this is deprecated. Okay, let's try this one. I have the latest, so why are you complaining about that? So maybe I'll have to use, yeah, Jenkins/Jenkins :latest. So let's go ahead and update this. So we'll say Jenkins/Jenkins. So here you can see it is telling Jenkins/Jenkins. So let me save this and let's try this once again. Hopefully now it should work. And done. So now if I go and check the remote machine, I should be able to see a new container running. So you can see there's my Jenkins started. So this is from Ansible. So, just so you know, Ansible can do this also. Likewise, you want to build an image, you can do that. So here, for example, this is to, stop and delete the container. If you want, you can do that also. So let's say nano delete. So first I'm stopping it and then I'm deleting it. So let's just make sure we are having the right container name. So you can see there's my container name, and that is what we are trying to refer to. So let me save this and let's execute that. So here we'll say delete.yaml. So this will go ahead and stop the container first and then delete the container for us. Okay, done. So now if I go and check, I don't have it, right? So it's possible, right? So likewise, here's another example, which is to build the image. Okay, so first we are building the image. So we are giving the path where the Docker file is present. We are building that image. We are tagging that image to our repo, and then I'm pushing that image. So even that is possible. Questions?
No, sir.
Okay, so that brings us to the last in your Ansible, which is roles. Okay, so remember we discussed about your including, importing. So, that is mainly used when you want to make your playbook reusable. And if you want to reduce the complexity of your playbook, so roles is another option we have for that. So this provides us with a framework for fully independent and or interdependent collections of variables, task files, templates, and modules. So the main difference you'll find with your roles is that so until now we had your target, variables, your task, your handlers, everything in one single file, right? Now roles can be used when you wanna break it down. So target, you will have one file for this. Variables will be in one file, tasks will be in one file, your handlers will be in one file, and then so on. So if you want to break down your playbooks into your respective files and folders, we can make use of your roles for that. So in Ansible, the role is the primary mechanism for breaking your playbook into multiple files. So whenever in Ansible we talk about breaking down a playbook, we are talking about your roles. So this simplifies writing complex playbooks and then makes them easier to reuse. Each role is basically limited to a particular functionality or desired output with all the necessary steps to provide that result either within that role itself or in other roles listed as dependencies. So the breaking of playbook, it mainly allows you to logically break the playbooks into reusable components. So this is another way how you can make your playbooks reusable. So roles in Ansible, these are next level of abstraction of Ansible playbooks. Roles are ways of automatically loading certain variable files, tasks, and handlers based on a known file structure. So with your roles, you have a standard file structure that we follow, and then roles will automatically start loading those files for us. So grouping the contents by roles also allows easy sharing of roles with other users. What are the benefits you get with this? Idea of include files and combine them to form clean and reusable abstractions, easy to maintain or troubleshooting your playbooks. So to begin with this, we use another tool called Ansible-Galaxy. So the first thing we'll have to do is to create the folder structure. So all we have to do is run that command, which will create the folder structure for us. We don't have to create a folder structure. This tool will create the folder structure. So let's call this as test underscore role. So basically I'm telling here, I want to initialize this folder as a role. So what this will do is this will go ahead and create that folder for me. And then it will create the file structure for me automatically. So you can see there's a folder for task. There's a folder for handlers. There's a folder for variables. There's a folder for defaults. So it follows a standard folder structure when we talk about your roles. Does it make sense? Any questions?
No,
Ravi.
Okay. Now it's important that you understand what all these different things are, right? So defaults, that's where we can define your default variables. Okay, so that's this folder you see. Inside this folder, you'll see main.yaml. And if we read that file, as of now, it will be empty. But if you want to define any default variables, we can define it in this particular file, in this defaults main.yaml file. Yeah, the files now, earlier we used to have one more folder called files. Now we don't have it, but we used to have it. So I'm going to ignore that. Handlers, so your handler sections will be defined in this folder. Meta can be used to define your additional information like your metadata, any additional information. Like in this case, if you see, you want to give the author name, the description, the company, any dependencies, your license, all that additional information you can define in this particular file. Tasks. So all of your logic, the main task, it goes here. Test, if you want to have any automated testing process built for your roles, you can define that. And then vars. Now defaults and vars both can be used to define your variables. Defaults, vars. So now let's say, for example, you have defined a variable in defaults and the same variable you have defined here. So this will always get the first preference. So whenever we have defined your variables in playbook, it will first check for the value in the vars. If it does not find that, then it will go to the defaults. So if you have any default variables, like for example, which version of Docker to use, that's common, right? It's not going to change. You can have it in the defaults. And then vars can be used for any additional variables. Does this make sense? Any questions?
No, Ravi.
So again, I have an example for this in the GitHub repo. You should be able to see that. So in our case, sorry, here is the example. So we'll first go to the task. Okay, so we'll create a main task. And as you can see here, nowhere we will be defining the target section. So I'll come to that. So we'll go to the main.yaml. Sorry, we'll go to the tasks. We'll go to the main and sorry. So we're installing Git, we're installing Docker, we're installing HTTPD, and then we are triggering copy.yaml and then create.yaml, two playbooks. So this will be within my task folder itself. So copy.yaml. So in the copy.yaml, we are going to have this data. I can see here I'm defining the variables, right? So these variables will have to declare in your vars section or in the default section. And then we are using notify. That means we will be triggering the handler section. So same thing, whatever we have learned until here, we are doing the same thing, but it's just that we are breaking it down now. That's it. And then we'll have the create, where we are creating a file and a folder. So I'm creating this test.html and then this index folder. Then we will have our var, so we'll define our variables. So here you should be able to see the variable. So this is all what we are calling in our playbook. So file 1, the value, file 2, the value, destination, the value, and all this we are not here, but rather here. You can see this file 1. So that's where the variable we have defined. So likewise, okay. We also have handlers because we have some notify steps defined. So here we have our handler tasks. This will be my handlers. And then finally, we'll create this folder called files. I'm not sure why they've removed it, but this is where we will be having our files that we want to copy. So in our case, we are having this Docker file, which we want to copy. We're not doing anything, we're just copying it, that's all. So let me create this Docker file. And then we also have this index.html file that we are copying. Okay, so let me show you the tree structure here. So here is the tree structure we have. Defaults we have not used, but files in the Docker file, the indexed handler we have defined here. Here we have defined the task, we have not used test, and here I've defined the variables. Just to see what exactly we're doing. So this will be triggered first. So we'll execute task 1, task 2, task 3, and then we'll trigger the copy.yaml. Here is what we have in the copy. So we've defined these variables, and these variables we have defined in our variable file, right? So likewise, you get the idea. Any questions, any queries?
It basically breaks the playbook, right?
Exactly. We are doing the same thing. Okay, so we have the handler section, we have the variable section, we have the task section, but just that now we have it in its own separate files.
Folders, yeah.
Now, the only thing that we are missing here is your target. Where do you want to execute this? So for that, we will be creating a separate file, okay, where we will be defining the target section. So let me take this and let me come outside the role folder and let me create a main.yaml here. And here we will define our target. And then we are calling our role. So here we will give the name of the role. So again, here, if you want to trigger multiple rows, you can do that. So now if I execute this, so my entire playbook will be executed. So, okay. Now Ansible takes care of, combining all those files and readings and everything. That is where your roles are really useful. So now everything comes together and gets executed. But at the same time, we have broken it down and we have made it reusable. So we can use this anywhere you want, however you want. That's basically your roles. Questions?
No, Rabi.
No. Stop here. There's one last topic pending which I'll cover tomorrow, which is the UI version of your Ansible. I'm not going to show you an example, but just going to give you an FYI, as to just an idea about it. But that's pretty much all I have as part of your Ansible. Okay, so tomorrow we'll complete this and then we'll get started with your next tool, which will be your build tool. Okay.
Sure, Rabi.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you
Thanks,
tomorrow.
Rabi. Bye.
Thank you.